We spend months preparing for OutSummit, and in what feels like a blink of an eye, it's done. Thank you so much to our speakers and moderators who have provided us with such rich content over the last 3 days. A big thank you to our supporters who make OutSummit possible, and of course to all the participants from over 100 countries who have tuned in at various times to join the conversation and take part in strategizing for how to continue pushing for the human rights of LGBTIQ people at a time when backlash is growing, international interconnectedness is diminishing, and movement is not free. We conclude OutSummit on December 10th, International Human Rights Day. We always host OutSummit at this time, and the choice of date is not a coincidence. For too long in too many places, human rights of LGBTIQ people have not been recognized as such. We know that those who oppose our human rights often claim that we demand special rights, when in fact we demand the same human rights as everyone else, all the rights that we are entitled to because of our humanity, but that we are often denied because of our sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or sex characteristics. And increasingly, we see that the rights that we have secured to date and any efforts to further progress are being challenged loudly, strategically, and with intensity across national, regional, and international platforms by conservative forces, most recently, if you will, in the form of the so-called anti-gender movement. Over the last 3 days, throughout the many OutSummit sessions, we've heard about many of these increasing challenges, not only to the further progress in the recognition of our humanity, but the active offense against rights we've already secured. As Alexis Hernandez put it in one of yesterday's workshops, we are facing an offensive against gender justice, bodily autonomy, LGBTIQ equality, and human rights overall. We've talked about crisis situations and how they amplify gender-based violence, including against LGBTIQ people. We've talked about the increasing presence and strength of anti-gender and anti-rights actors in multilateral spaces, and the changing tactics that they use, pitching one human right against another, making it seem as if it's a zero-sum game. And as if recognizing the rights of LGBTIQ people will somehow take away from the rights of women, children, or families, ignoring that many in our community are women, are or have children, and we have and are part of families. Many of you also highlighted increasing divisions among our allies and ourselves in the women's, feminist, and even LGBTIQ movements, especially when it comes to sex worker rights, trans people, and rights of non-binary people. Our keynote speaker, Masha Gessen, talked about facing such levels of backsliding and backlash that make us feel like the ground is being torn from underneath our feet. And this is happening in a context of global interconnectedness diminishing, borders shutting, and countries turning inward, effectively withdrawing the right to movement and seeking safety elsewhere. In this context, it is difficult to find hope, to find drive, and to keep going. And yet, we all know that is what we must do. And I know that many of you, like me, have found some of that throughout OutSummit. A common thread in finding that hope and drive has been community. Again, I want to give a couple of examples of what I've heard over the last couple of days. Kaspar Salitis said, "We as activists always want to push forward and move forward and do more. And we forget to take care of ourselves and to celebrate the small victories together with our allies. Small victories are so important. We have to celebrate them." And Masha Gessen said, "I don't know if we will prevail. I have hope. I don't have a lot of optimism. But hope is a moral imperative. And hope is only real if you're doing something to bring the hope for the future closer." And continuing, "Your work is more important now than it has perhaps ever been in my lifetime." Our other keynote speaker, Gigi Chao, said, What we need are people that can create stories and make history by recording everything that has happened to our kind. So much of LGBTIQ history has been wiped off the history books. I think it is time to put an end to that and share our stories. I think the more organized, the stronger and more active the backlash is, the more important our work is. Throughout the conference, we've also recognized that we can't do this work alone. Tina Kolos-Orban said, we need to reach out beyond our movement because we're not strong enough or big enough to do this alone. When we are scapegoated by the anti-gender movement, we need allies who can stand up for and with us. And Cleopatra Daniels said, sometimes we think that we have to fight the world for justice alone, but we don't. We are part of this community. We're not alone. Thank you for being together with us over the last 3 days. It's been really encouraging to see that strength in numbers and strength in community. Being together now or during Prides is not, of course, not enough. Those who oppose us mobilize every day. They have more money, more resource, and cross-sector allies. And of course, we have to respond in the same way. We have to mobilize every day too, across civil society, across state and private sector boundaries, to talk, listen, engage, and act. We have to lead on all the issues that concern us. Erika Castellanos put it really well yesterday. A seat at the table is no longer enough. Where it concerns us, we need leadership positions. As we're closing out OutSummit this year, Outright looks forward to engaging with you over the coming weeks and months to act on what we've learned and discussed over the last 3 days, to continue fighting every day for the human rights of every LGBTIQ person everywhere.